welcome to another episode of The Kingdom Truth.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine for a second that you're holding a winning lottery ticket, like the ultimate ticket, the one that guarantees absolute peace and just, ultimate fulfillment.
Right, the dream scenario.
Exactly. But here's the catch. The only way you can actually cash it in is if you agree to walk through a pitch black tunnel for 20 years, totally blind, without a map.
Oh man, yeah, that changes things pretty quickly.
Right. It's an agonizing reality, and that is actually the core of what we are unpacking in today's deep dive into the sovereignty of surrender. We're wading into some incredibly uncomfortable territory today.
Very uncomfortable. Because, well, it goes against everything we naturally want.
Exactly. The central focus today is this really unsettling truth that when a lot of believers raise their hands and say, God, have your way, what they are secretly whispering in the back of their minds is actually, God bless my way.
Wow. Yeah, that is the ultimate collision right there between our human condition and genuine faith.
It really is.
Because, the human brain is literally hardwired for survival. And survival inherently demands control. Like, control creates this illusion of safety for us. We inherently want to mitigate risk at all times.
So we just project that onto God.
Exactly, yeah. When humanity intersects with the divine, our default mechanism, whether we realize it or not, is to try and treat God as like a sort of cosmic service provider.
A cosmic service provider. I love that phrasing, honestly.
Right, because in that framework, we act like God's primary job description is to execute human desires on our own human timelines according to our very specific, personal preferences.
Yeah, but true faith, biblical faith requires basically the exact opposite of that.
It does. It demands absolute surrender, which feels to our brains like a direct threat to our survival instincts.
And that is where this hits home for you, the listener, because it is just so incredibly easy to want all the beautiful, peaceful benefits of surrender without paying the agonizingly high cost of actually prying your fingers off the steering wheel.
We want the serenity of being a passenger, but we completely refuse to give up the driver's seat.
Yes, we want a destination, but we insist on dictating the route to get there.
And that tension, that exact tension of wanting the divine on our own terms, is precisely what separates inherited surface-level religion from a genuine transformative relationship with God.
Oh, that's a really important distinction. Religion versus relationship.
Exactly, because religion in its most mechanical form is really just a system of control. It's like, if I perform ritual A, I receive blessing B. It's totally predictable.
But a relationship isn't like that.
No, not at all. A genuine relationship is inherently unpredictable. It requires actual vulnerability.
Wait, hold on, though. I need to challenge this a bit, just to play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Because if I'm a believer, right, and I spend hours praying, and I'm studying scripture every morning, and I'm fasting and doing all these disciplined things, human logic kind of dictates I should see a return on that investment.
Sure, it makes sense on paper.
Right. Like, why shouldn't I expect cause and effect? The whole universe operates on physics and cause and effect. If I do the right spiritual activities, isn't it completely rational to expect a predictable, favorable result?
Well, from a strictly human, mechanistic standpoint, that logic makes perfect sense. Cause and effect drives our economy, it drives agriculture, it drives our relationships.
Right, how the world works.
But the critical error there is assuming that the creator of the universe is somehow bound by the economic or physical laws that he created.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a paradigm shift.
It is. When we drag those on-demand expectations into our spiritual lives, we enter this territory of what we could call spiritual consumerism.
Spiritual consumerism.
Yeah, the mindset morphs into this idea of, well, I deposited my fasting and my prayer, therefore the divine ATM is obligated to dispense my preferred outcome.
That phrase perfectly diagnoses the modern condition, honestly. We live in an ecosystem of instant delivery, on-demand entertainment, and these hyper-personalized algorithms.
Everything is tailored to us.
Everything. Every app on our phone is literally designed to learn our preferences and feed us exactly what we want the exact second we want it. We are neurologically conditioned for instant gratification.
And we don't even realize we're doing it.
No, we don't. So naturally, we just treat God like a customized algorithm or like a food delivery app. We punch in our prayer order and we expect the exact outcome we visualized, hot and ready, right to our doorstep.
And when the delivery's late or the order looks different than the picture on the menu,
We freak out.
we experience profound spiritual crisis. We literally think God has abandoned us.
Which is so crazy when you think about it.
It is, and this is actually exactly what Jesus was addressing with their famous directive, seek first the kingdom of God. He was completely dismantling this transactional consumer paradigm.
How so? Like by focusing on the kingdom part.
Yes, because seeking a kingdom inherently implies submitting to a king. It means acknowledging a sovereign authority that supersedes your personal preferences.
Right, a king doesn't take orders from the subjects.
Exactly. And the hard truth is, God rarely prioritizes human comfort over divine purpose.
Because comfort rarely produces any actual growth.
Never. It just doesn't.
So if God doesn't operate like a cosmic delivery app bound by our cause and effect algorithms, we have to figure out how he actually functions.
Right.
And when you look at the source material, history reveals a pattern that is, to be honest, highly offensive to human pragmatism.
Oh, deeply offensive.
Yeah, God intentionally and repeatedly chooses methods, timelines, and people that any sane human being would immediately disqualify.
Just look at the sociological dynamics of the ancient world. Specifically, look at the time of Moses.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack Moses.
So, the Israelites are suffering under generations of brutal, horrible slavery. They are crying out for military deliverance, right?
Right.
If a human committee were tasked with selecting a leader to go head-to-head with Pharaoh, who, by the way, was considered a living deity with the greatest superpower of the ancient world at his disposal, they would recruit a charismatic general.
A brilliant tactician, a master orator, someone with a massive army.
Exactly. But instead, the assignment falls to a man who had literally been a fugitive for 40 years.
Moses had a murder on his record.
He did. He fled Egypt in disgrace and lived in complete obscurity, tending someone else's sheep out in a desert.
And when the call finally comes, he doesn't even want the job. Moses literally argues with the burning bush.
He tries to give the job away.
He cites his speech impediment. He begs for someone else to be sent. From a modern HR or resume perspective, this is the worst possible candidate you could pick.
The Egyptian court was a place of high rhetoric, immense wealth, and intimidation. Moses lacked all of it. But God operates on the principle of divine assignment, not human confidence. Because think about it. If Moses had walked into Pharaoh's court with polished rhetoric and a massive trained army, what would happen?
The resulting liberation would have been attributed to human military prowess?
Exactly. The people would say, wow, Moses is a great general. But by using a stuttering, reluctant 80-year-old shepherd with literally nothing but a wooden staff, the outcome could only be attributed to a sovereign God.
The objective is always human dependence, not self-sufficiency. That completely shatters the modern self-help illusion that God only uses people once they finally feel like ready or empowered. He entirely bypassed the polished candidates.
He did. And we see the exact same psychological dynamic play out later with David.
Oh man, David is such a good example of this.
When the prophet Samuel arrives in Bethlehem to anoint the next king of Israel, David's own father doesn't even bother to invite him to the ceremony.
Which is just, ouch.
Right, but to understand the weight of that, you really have to understand ancient Near Eastern culture. Society was built on a rigid hierarchy of primogeniture.
Firstborn privilege.
Yes. The eldest son inherited the wealth, the status, the authority. Physical stature and visible strength were the primary metrics of leadership. And David was the youngest of 8.
He had zero social capital.
0. His father, Jesse, evaluated his sons through the cultural lens of the day and concluded David was so irrelevant to a royal anointing that he should just stay out in the fields working with the sheep.
So the father paraded all the tall, handsome, culturally acceptable sons in front of the prophet.
And God rejects every single one of them.
And then the text delivers one of the most devastating blows to the human ego in 1 Samuel 16:7. It says, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart."
That is such a dangerous, disruptive truth. Because humans categorize based on presentation and pedigree, we just do, but God selects based on internal posture and purpose.
The terrifying application for us today is realizing how often we probably reject the very individuals the very opportunities or the very paths God intends to use, simply because they don't arrive in our expected packaging.
We are so blinded by cultural traditions and our own aesthetic preferences that we actively resist the divine process.
It's the tragedy of missing the miracle just because we didn't like the wrapping paper.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this resistance doesn't just apply to who is chosen, it heavily, heavily applies to the timeline.
The agony of the when.
Yes, we want the quick manifestation. Modern church culture loves to preach about the grand promises of God, but there is this collective amnesia regarding the grueling process required to actually handle those promises.
Joseph is definitely the archetypal case study for this kind of psychological whiplash.
Oh, 100%. As a teenager, Joseph receives a literal divine vision of leadership and influence. The promise is crystal clear.
But then the immediate trajectory of his life moves in the exact opposite direction.
He is betrayed by his own brothers,
Sold into human trafficking.
falsely accused of sexual assault, and then thrown into an ancient Egyptian political dungeon.
We really need to pause on that dungeon for a second, because I think we tend to sanitize these historical accounts in Sunday school.
We really do.
An Egyptian prison wasn't a modern facility with a library, yard time, and a nice rehabilitation program. It was a subterranean pit.
It was a place of disease, darkness, sensory deprivation, and just absolute hopelessness. You were sent there to be forgotten.
And Joseph lost a decade of his prime in that darkness.
The hiddenness, the absolute obscurity, had to precede his ultimate visibility as the second in command of Egypt.
Imagine the profound psychological dissonance of that. Holding on to a divine promise of greatness while waking up every single day in literal chains.
That is the agony of the process. And honestly, so many believers abandon their faith right there in the pit, not because God actually failed them, but because the mechanism of their preparation looked exactly like abandonment.
It's kind of like taking a recipe that requires 12 hours in a slow cooker to break down the tough fibers of the meat and trying to microwave it in 3 minutes because you're hungry right now.
That is such a good analogy.
Right, like the heat is applied, sure, but the premature outcome completely ruins the entire dish.
And you can absolutely force a faster result in your life. You can force a career move or manipulate a relationship into happening just because the silence of waiting makes you so uncomfortable.
The manufacturing the outcome always carries a devastating cost.
Always. And the historical record of Abraham and Sarah proves your point about ruined dishes perfectly.
Yeah, they really did force the microwave on that one.
They did. They receive a promise of a son, an heir who will birth an entire nation. But then decades pass. Decades of biological ticking clocks and overwhelming societal pressure.
Because in ancient Mesopotamian society, barrenness wasn't just a private grief.
No, it was a public disgrace. It threatened your economic security in old age, it created legal nightmares regarding inheritance, and it was often viewed culturally as a literal divine curse.
The socioeconomic pressure on them must have been absolutely suffocating. They were facing total erasure.
So, when the psychological toll of waiting became unbearable, they decided to intervene. They tried to, help God out.
They applied human engineering to a divine promise.
Exactly. Sarah gives her servant, Hagar, to Abraham, and they produce Ishmael. And we have to remember, this was a legally acceptable practice in their culture. It was a standard pragmatic loophole.
But pragmatic loopholes born from impatience create generational fractures.
They really do. When human beings lose their capacity to trust divine timing, they manufacture outcomes. And the sobering reality is that the consequences of that manufactured outcome, the conflict born from forcing the issue long, outlived the impatience that caused it.
The fallout of our impatience doesn't just disappear because we eventually get back on track. We create our own Ishmaels.
We really do.
We force the timeline, we get the job we weren't ready for, we marry the person we knew we shouldn't, and then we spend years untangling the mess, all while wondering why God didn't bless our pragmatism.
Because God will not subordinate himself to our personal scripts. He just won't.
And the ultimate undeniable proof of this subversion isn't just found in ancient patriarchs. It is found in the central center of history.
Jesus.
Exactly. The arrival of Jesus himself completely shattered the expectations of the very people who had been waiting for him for centuries.
And if you look at the psychological state of first century Israel, it makes complete sense why they missed it.
They are living under the crushing, brutal weight of the Roman Empire.
Right. The Pax Romana was enforced through extreme violence and heavy, heavy taxation. The Jewish people are desperate. They have rebel factions, like the Zealots, trying to violently overthrow the government.
They are reading the prophecies of a conquering Messiah, and they are fully expecting a military genius who will ride into Jerusalem on a war horse and just slaughter the Roman legions.
They wanted political liberation. They wanted a hammer to smash their oppressors.
But instead,
the sovereign of the universe arrives as an infant, born into staggering poverty to unwed working-class parents.
it's just so backward to human logic.
Completely. He grows up in Nazareth, which was a town so insignificant and socially stigmatized that people literally used it as a punchline. He doesn't recruit military commanders or wealthy political influencers.
He surrounds himself with uneducated fishermen, despised tax collectors, and social outcasts.
He looked entirely weak to a culture that associated divinity exclusively with dominance.
And then the ultimate offense to their expectations.
Yeah.
The crucifixion.
Yeah, crucifixion was a uniquely Roman invention designed not just to kill, but to completely strip the victim of all human dignity.
It was a public service announcement of Roman supremacy.
Reserved strictly for the lowest criminals, slaves, and enemies of the state. To the watching world, to the Roman centurions and the religious elite, Jesus hanging on a cross looked like absolute pathetic defeat.
But the mechanism of ultimate power was hidden inside ultimate surrender. He completely inverted the human concept of victory.
He did, and this brings up a really crucial mirror for our own lives today. We see this exact dynamic play out in the story of Naaman in the Old Testament.
Oh, Naaman is fascinating.
Right, so Naaman was a highly decorated, highly respected Syrian military commander. He possessed immense wealth and social power, but he contracted leprosy.
So he travels to Israel to seek healing from the prophet Elisha, fully expecting, like, a VIP experience.
Completely. He rolls up with his chariots, his horses, and a massive entourage.
He's expecting Elisha to come out, wave his hand dramatically over the leprosy, call on the name of the Lord, and perform this grand cinematic miracle befitting a Syrian general.
But Elisha doesn't even grant him a face-to-face meeting.
Which is such a power move, honestly.
It really is. Elisha just sends a servant to the door with instructions. Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River.
And Naaman is immediately enraged.
Because historically, the Jordan River was muddy, narrow, and entirely unimpressive, especially compared to the pristine, majestic rivers of Damascus that Naaman was accustomed to. He felt deeply insulted.
His pride was deeply offended. He basically says, I won't accept this blessing if the aesthetic doesn't match my status.
Exactly. And his pride almost cost him his healing.
That right there is one of those critical insights for anyone listening. Pride constantly disguises itself as spiritual discernment.
Oh, that is so true. Naaman likely thought he was being discerning. He rationalized that a dirty river couldn't possibly be the conduit for divine healing.
But in reality, he was just offended that the method required him to strip off his prestigious armor and humble himself in muddy water.
And we do this in our modern lives all the time.
We absolutely do. We reject the process because it feels beneath us. Like, we ask God for character, and he gives us an incredibly annoying coworker to teach us patience.
And what do?
We immediately pray for a new job instead of submitting to the muddy river of that daily interaction.
Yes. We might not be rejecting God overtly, but we are absolutely rejecting the methods that offend our expectations.
Which brings us to a massive disconnect in modern faith. The difference between desiring a blessing and actually positioning yourself to receive it.
Because we expect the grand cinematic miracle, we fail to recognize the humble, totally inconvenient places God uses to prepare us.
Look at the roster of people God used to build the early church.
Yeah.
It is a lineup that would terrify a modern corporate HR department.
It really would. I mean, Rahab was a known prostitute in Jericho.
Gideon was so paralyzed by fear and insecurity that he was hiding in a wine press when God called him a mighty warrior.
Peter was violently impulsive.
And Paul. We cannot overstate the shock of the Apostle Paul.
Before his conversion, Saul of Tarsus was functionally a religious terrorist. He was actively hunting down, imprisoning, and orchestrating the executions of early Christians.
If Paul walked into a modern church today with that specific history on his resume, the congregation would likely call security. They would freeze him in his past.
Because human systems freeze people in their worst mistakes. But God looks at a murderer and sees the author of half the New Testament.
Because God prepares people in the shadows before he ever platforms them in the light.
Always. Moses endured 40 years in the desert. David spent years running for his life, hiding in caves from a paranoid king.
Joseph matured in a dungeon.
Even Jesus lived 30 years in complete, unrecorded obscurity before beginning a 3-year public ministry. The preparation phase is mandatory.
Yet our current culture idolizes visibility without preparation. We demand the platform, but we violently resist the hidden years.
And that leads to a profound question for you listening right now.
Are you currently praying for a massive breakthrough, an opportunity, or a new level of influence, while simultaneously complaining about the deeply inconvenient place, the agonizingly slow process, or the beneath-you job that God is actually using to build your capacity for that exact prayer?
Are you demanding the corner office while resenting the mailroom that is actively trying to teach you the humility you will need to survive the corner office?
That is the crucial difference between mere desire and actual positioning.
Everyone desires the manifestation of the blessing, but very few are willing to endure the formation process. Positioning yourself requires intense humility.
It requires obedience in the mundane.
It means choosing to study scripture when you'd rather be distracted. It means cultivating intimacy with the Holy Spirit in the quiet, unglamorous moments of your day. You have to be willing to abandon the script you wrote for your own life.
And honestly, this might be the reason why so many people can sit in a church pew every single Sunday for 20 years and remain entirely spiritually stagnant.
They have the religion, but they lack the relationship.
Because they refuse to be formed by anything that makes them uncomfortable. They want the manifestation without the formation.
Stagnation is almost always the result of refusing to surrender control. To synthesize everything we've explored today, from Moses' reluctance to Joseph's prison to Abraham's manufactured outcomes to the muddy Jordan River, the root issue always circles back to trust versus control.
Uncertainty inherently threatens our biological need for comfort.
It does, and we have inherited this cultural tradition that says following God means your life will be smooth, prosperous, and perpetually upward trending.
But the biblical reality, the hard truth that history proves time and time again, is that God's process is almost certainly going to wound your ego before it blesses your future.
It is a fatal blow to the ego. It requires us to critically examine the foundation of our faith. Is your belief system built on the biblical truth of a sovereign, unpredictable king who is far more interested in your character than your comfort?
Or is it built on an inherited cultural tradition where God functions as a genie in a bottle, waiting to rubber stamp your personal ambitions?
True obedience, true alignment with divine purpose, only happens the exact moment you finally let go of the steering wheel.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to really wrestle with as you go about your day.
I love this part.
Think about the areas of your life where you feel the most friction right now. If your spiritual frustration lately isn't actually because God is absent or ignoring you, but because He is simply refusing to become subordinate to your personal script. What would happen today if you stopped asking Him to bless your timeline and finally truly surrendered to His?
It changes the entire trajectory of a human life. It really does.
See you on another episode of The Kingdom Truth.